I'm joined by Andy Gamble from AVP Media, who you may know for many different things in the Quo universe. He's done so many like video projects and stuff over the years with the band, and now he's very much involved with this new expanded edition of Quo Live. Welcome once again, Andy, to the podcast. It's been a number of years. Can you tell me, the story of how this expanded box set came about?
It's quite a long story, so I'll try and keep it as short as possible. The whole seeing that these tapes existed goes back to when we did the Pictures documentary, which is way back in 2008. We were commissioned by the Biography Channel to do a documentary at that time. And I wanted to put something into that documentary that fans hadn't heard before. And I contacted Universal, and they sent me a very, very small little PDF with a load of reels on it. And there was 2 or 3 of these Glasgow reels on there. So they managed to send me the audio for it, for the documentary, which since actually didn't actually make the documentary, the audio. But I've had these reels for some time and known that they existed. But at that time, since 2008, there was only 2 or 3 of them. There wasn't a lot there. And then since, as you know, I've been collecting a lot of material for a hopeful anthology, which we've talked about in the past, and been talking with Universal about various things. And one of the projects that they wanted to do was this live project, if the reels were there. So myself and Luke, because Luke's had a lot of input in trying to source these reels as well, we managed to, over several months, actually locate these reels. Then we hit a bit of a problem that Universal actually don't really want to be involved with Quo anymore as a record company. They're sort of moving away from the sort of heritage sort of rock, and they're licensing things out now, which is why this product's coming out on Demon. So there's been a lot of sort of trying to negotiate deals with various record companies. So this project was sort of backburned for a bit, then it came back and whatever. And we decided to search for the reels, and we found them all. You know, they have actually went into the vaults and found various reels, and then we saw that we were missing a few. And they kept searching and searching, and they managed to find them. Which is great. So that's the background to it. It's sort of been a long, slow burner, really. And we're here.
Is it true that at least one of the reels was labelled Peters and Lee?
It's actually what is remarkable is that none of the reels that they took with them up to Glasgow were fresh, new tapes that they had in the mobile. They were all old tapes from other studio sessions, and they just recorded over them. And yeah, you can actually see on the tape boxes the label stuck over the top, and some of them are different artists, and one of them, was Peters and Lee, which is amazing, isn't it, to think that a band at that time with some stature were using old tape stock. You know, is hey, but I suppose it was a sign of the times, wasn't it? They used to do that sort of thing, didn't they? And the BBC did that sort of thing, wiping over old tapes, but they were all there, and that's the major thing, which is why we could do this, because we found everything, and it was such a relief when we managed to source them all.
Indeed. So it's decided that you're going to do something with these tapes.
Yeah,
Like, what happens next? I guess that that's like digitization, but obviously you have to bake them and stuff first. I mean, what was your process?
that's right. I mean, funnily enough, on this one, Universal did that process for us, but I have done on a lot of the other material that I've got from Francis's studio, including the Hammersmith 79 show and some other tapes. We actually don't bake them. We actually dehydrate them. We put them in a food dehydrator, which takes all the moisture out of it, especially if they've been kept in a damp environment. Sometimes there's a bit of a mold on. And it works in a similar process to baking. It just takes all the moisture out, and then you can slowly put them on the machine and play them through slowly, and then rewind them, and then take it in. These were actually in very good condition, these Glasgow ones, because Universal have kept them. They've not been in someone's garage for 50 years, 40 years. They have had them, so they were in very good condition, and they sent us all the stems, all the 24-track files, and that's when we then moved on to the mixing process.
Previously, you have actually worked with the Frantic Four. You filmed
Yeah,
at least one of
yeah,
their tours. Obviously, you would have been in charge of the equipment there, but with something like, Glasgow 76, you've just got whatever they laid out at the time.
yeah.
What was the situation with the tracks? Like, what were the faders labelled as, if you will?
Funny enough, if you in the next edition of the Fan Club magazine, we're going to put some pictures of the actual, Pro Tools session that we had, and some pictures from the studio, and that will actually, show you the layout of it. How many layers with drums, how many ambient mics. There was a lot of ambient mics in there, as you can probably hear from the initial 1977 release of it. It's a very, very ambient mix. I feel anyway. Again, it's subjective, this, but I thought it was very, very ambient. And what we've done in these new mixes is really strip that back without trying to lose the Glasgow vibe of the audience, which of course we didn't want to lose. But we've really done a modern mix, and we've got all the instruments and the vocals and the drums really punching through, rather than being lost in that ambient massive noise, which is probably what the band were trying to do in 1976, 77 on record. They were trying to capture that live gig environment, weren't they? But with this, we haven't. We've really tried to make a proper live album with this. Although there's no overdubs or anything, it's purely straight off the tape and mixed. So it's raw. It's a raw performance.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people mention when like reaction to this release of saying, well, there's nothing new here, or there's no difference, like we're just being sold the same thing again. Obviously there's free gigs on here as opposed to the combination that basically made up one, if you will,
Yes.
in the eyes of the listener, ears of the listener. Are there any differences between the nights?
Not in the track listing, no. It was an identical running order every night. So there's no. I've seen some people asking if there was any extra tracks played or anything. No, it's Quo, isn't it? It was the same set every night. Yeah, I mean, subtle differences. As you'll hear in the three nights, there's obviously subtle differences in some of the tracks. But no, it was the same set every night, unfortunately.
Well, I can imagine that 4,500 times, for example, would go in slightly different directions.
Yeah.
Because I had a listen to the original album earlier today, and it struck me and thought, he cannot, like Francis with his solos and stuff, can't have been playing exactly the same every night.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's subtle differences. Yeah, and there's subtle differences. I think the night one of 4,500 times, Francis really sings along with Rick on the intro. There's nobody in the end of my life, and there's real harmonies going on, which he didn't do on the other two nights. So there is little, subtle differences. One of the biggest things that is included on these new mixes, which again some people might not be happy with, but Andy Bown was really not even barely audible on the original album, and now he doesn't play on every track on these recordings, but we've really sort of increased his level and really included him in the mixes on these, because I think it's an important element that Quo were trying to bring in at that time. Experimenting, bringing in primitive keyboard sounds into their set. So we've included that, and hopefully people will like it, because it was there.
From start to finish, how long did it take you to do the remixing process?
Well, funny enough, I'll have to go back, because believe it or not, this project was finished in the summer of 2023. So it's for me, it's not really new. I've been doing it for quite a long time. But the mixing process probably took about a month, I would think, maybe a month. We thought initially it might be quicker because we obviously started on day one and we had all the, we'd worked out all the settings of where the mics were and we had all the desks set up for that night. But then we realised on the second night, they played around with all the mics for the recording of night two, and it was really quite different. The mic placings on the drums and on the cabinets or whatever, it was really quite different. So we had to spend a lot of time trying to match the two, the nights. But I would say probably about a month to sort it all out.
And all this time later, I mean, all that waiting and
Yeah.
essentially having to keep this massive secret.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, various conventions I've been to and whatever, I've chatted with people, and word has been out there about it. I don't think there's any sort of surprise that this is coming out. I think most people have known about it for a while. It's just been frustrating that it's just taken so long for it to come out. But now that it's here, and we've got this deal going with Demon Records, I think fingers crossed if it sells well, then we can push on and move on to the next project.
I know you can't tell me exactly what's in that vault, but
Yes.
what exactly is in that vault? It's best if you're a bit, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that the Hammersmith '79 show is definitely there. That's 24 track again, so that will make a really, really great release. And I think that's I would say up there among the next ones to do. To be honest with you, I imagine that will be the next one. One of the big problems we've got is that, as you know, physical product sales are not great at the moment. It's only collectors and people like us Quo fans who hopefully will be buying these box sets. So got to be careful, and that's why I say to people, you might think it's a little bit expensive, but to make product now and for the record company to make it worthwhile, it has to go at that price, unfortunately, and that's the way it is. And if you want this type of material, buy it, please. Don't go on Spotify, and otherwise they just won't deem it profitable enough.
And then the next thing on the slate won't come out, essentially.
Yeah, that's right. They'll just look at it and go, well, we've only sold X amount of copies, and that even though the Demon have been very good, working with them, they've been very good. Figures don't lie. And they've got to make it worthwhile.
Indeed. To go back to the sort of remixing and mastering, when you were listening through those stems, were there any particular issues that you had to fix or anything like that?
Yeah, there was. I think it was second night. Was it the second night? There was on the transfers. There was a couple of tracks that had some clicks, some constant clicks. So we had to, which is quite a painstaking process to go through and remove these clicks. But it's quite simple to do that. Once you see the clicks, you can just take them out. But we had to go through the whole gig and remove it off those two tracks, which was a bit tedious. But I left my engineer to do that. I must say that, about the engineer Tom Orrell, who I've known. He works at Nave Studios in Leeds, and I got to know him when we were doing some tape transfers of Francis's material, or tapes there. And I thought it'd be great to use an engineer who didn't really know about Quo. He didn't know anything about them, really. He'd heard that they did Rock All the World and In the Army now, whatever, but he had no idea about this type of material, this pre-rock Rocking Over the World material. And he's really brought some fresh ears to it, really, which I think is great. And I sat there with him and we played around with things, and I just hope people really like it. I think it's a real fresh sound, and it's really brought it to life. So yeah, big shout out to Tom, the engineer, who was great. And yeah, one of the comments from Tom was that he couldn't believe that it was a 50-year-old recording, from a mobile studio. He said the quality of the recording was absolutely superb,
Yeah.
in that. And it was a Rolling Stones mobile, wasn't it? It was,
Hmm.
yeah, it was a real quality recording, which helps, because you're not restoring too much. It's all there, and I mean, even just bringing the faders up on all 24 tracks, you've still got a reasonably basic mix because they did it in the mobile. So, yeah, it was just well, they were professionals, weren't they? Steve Lillywhite, I think, was it Steve Lillywhite did the initial recording.
Do you think the engineer now considers himself a Quo fan, or do you think it's a little bit too much?
No, I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah. He's whether or not he can handle another same set. So, I mean, one of the things we were, just to rewind a little bit, when we were looking for the tapes, we actually found all the Tokyo Quo tapes as well. Um, the 24 tracks of that, so that's there in its entirety, that gig as well. But we thought that'd be just a little bit too much to put on this set as well, being with exactly the same set again. So that's another possible one for further down the line. But maybe people might have had enough of this set list for the next couple of years anyway.
Well, there was a live box set released around 11 years ago, which
Yeah,
had
yeah,
Tokyo Quo and an Australian gig on it, and I think maybe there was a little bit confusion between that and this. That felt a lot more like a 70s kind of compilation box set, whereas this is focused on the single gig.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, that was Bob's. Yeah, Bob Young had that Sydney show. A bit strange going on that set, but bit of a strange thing to add on. But yeah, the first two CDs on this set are basically that 20, was it 2014, 20, whatever that year was. It's basically that we've just tweaked it a little bit in remastering. We've not touched the original album really too much. I mean, at one stage, it wasn't really going to go on. I think it was the record company decided to put that on as well. It was just going to be the 6 CDs for 3 nights. But I think marketing people, being as they are, they wanted to shoehorn the original album in there as well and make it based on the live album, um, which has got its pros and cons, I suppose. You know,
Do you think that possibly has caused some confusion?
I think so. Yeah, yeah. I think some people are thinking, "Oh, this is just a remaster of that," and it's not. It's the three new nights remixed. I think the trouble they had as well was with the artwork. There was a few legal issues with the artwork. The initial for the Record Store Day vinyl release, it was a completely different front cover than what they've gone for. But they had some legal issues, and they had to revert back to that with the blue tint on it and the date in the corner. Yeah, some people I've spoken to think it's great because it does relate to the album, but some people have said, well, someone just looking at it might think it's just the live album, but hey, it's what's on it that counts.
Exactly. You touch on the fact that the first night is going out as a record store day release. Is there any talk at all of a vinyl issue of all 3 nights?
Yeah, I have talked to them about it. Again, that it's something for discussion after the event. I think. I mean, I can't I can't see them being any leftover copies myself. I think they're going to shift, and hopefully you know the CD box set will shift as well. And if that, it gives us a lot more room for saying, look, let's put Night Two out maybe next year. Uh, but my only worry with that is that if this, it might push back other projects if they start doing that, which I possibly wouldn't want to do. You know, but hey, yeah, yeah. I'm sure they'll be open to it. Um, which it'd be nice, wouldn't it, to have all 3 nights on vinyl?
Well, it does seem to be a request. I
Mm,
think,
mm,
well, because the original came out when it did. and
yeah,
people want
yeah,
to add it to that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Watch this space, Jamie. Watch this space. We'll see. We'll see. It's yeah,
Just to go back a few years to when you actually filmed the Frantic Four
yeah,
during their reunion tour, forward slash
yeah.
tours.
Yes.
What are your memories of doing that?
Stressful. Yeah, we did the first one, the 2013 one. We uh, were commissioned by the record company to do a documentary following them round the whole tour, and then to film various gigs, and then finally to film the Wembley show, which came out as on the DVD and Blu-ray. But yeah, it was great. I mean, especially going to the rehearsals prior to the tour, and just I remember going on quite early on, and me and Jeff, the other cameraman, we turned up and I could hear them rehearsing "Oh Baby" from outside, and I thought, obviously this is the first time I've heard things like this live, and I heard them doing it, and that's when I knew this is going to be superb. And then the rest is history, isn't it? But yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult. They were very nervous the first night at Manchester, and it was very evident. You could tell they were really nervous. So there wasn't a lot of filming done that day. Uh, but the vibe was superb. It was really good. And Alan and John, of course. It was great to meet them. It was the first time I'd met Alan. Yeah, first time I met Alan on that. It was, yeah, prior to him coming to the convention. Well, the conventions weren't happening then, were they? So yeah, what a great guy Alan was. Couldn't do enough for you on that tour. He was really really open to everything, as they all were. In fairness, even Francis was. You know,
Yes, I heard a rumor or two that the intro for Jackie Linton was sourced from the tapes
yeah,
that
that's right.
you used. Is that right?
It is, yeah, yeah, that's right. I gave them just his microphone feed, and they cut out, obviously they cut out the Glasgow Apollo bit, whatever. But I actually sent them, and again, people will hear this when they get the set. I actually sent them the audio from the final night, Jackie's intro to that, which was different because he actually introduces all the band members in that. And he says, Francis Rossi, John Cogler, and Alan Lancaster. And I thought that would have been nice to have used on the Frantics tour. But they didn't. They just chose to use the famous one and slightly cut it. Yeah. But yeah, that was from these tapes. Yeah.
Well, I guess the beauty of using the original intro was that everybody knew it, and so you had that recognition.
Yes, I
And
suppose.
when I
Yeah.
listened to the original album earlier today, I
Mm.
was it was almost weird not hearing people shouting the same time as Jackie Linton, because in my
Yeah, yeah.
mind's eye, that was my experience of it, and so you probably would have lost that.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the whole tour, that 2013, I mean, very, very nostalgic, wasn't it? That first night at Manchester was, yeah, pretty special. As were the Hammersmith shows were pretty special as well. The Wembley show was a nightmare for us to film it. It was very, very difficult. Technically for us to film that show, but we got there eventually. And, you know, I think they'd learned a lot on the second tour, the 2014 tour. It was good. It was good. 10 years ago. Well, more than 10 years ago now, isn't it?
Yes.
12 years ago.
Ah, time flies, doesn't it?
I know. I know. Unbelievable.
Indeed. And of course, being able to listen to those original tapes from 76 and hearing
Yeah.
just how fast they were at that
Yes.
point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And raw, it's such a raw sound, a very heavy sound. But quality wise, it's still there. As I keep saying, the audio quality of the recordings is so good. It's really made it come to life. And like I said earlier, we've trimmed back the ambience and really brought the vocal through more prominently, and the guitars panned to the correct sides. And yeah, it's just sounding really, really fresh. And I hope everyone loves them.
Well, it is what I've heard described as the Quoley Grail of all releases. You know, people have
Yeah, yeah,
waited a long time for it, but like we say, there are others who aren't so keen because you know they look at 8 CDs and it's basically 4 times the same track listing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But as you've pointed out, like there will be differences and there will be
Yeah,
other things that perhaps haven't been heard
yeah.
before. What would you say to those people to kind of encourage them to look to at least give this release a try?
Well, I suppose though it depends. I don't really know if those people are real Quo collectors or not. I mean, yeah, you could argue that this release isn't really something for a floating Quo fan or somebody in the street. It's for a Quo hardcore fan, isn't it? You know, like I say, there's same set every night, but for the Quo fans, yeah, they'll absolutely love it. They really will. It's such a great, yeah, a great find and a great release. Someone said it was the best archival release Quo have done in a long time. So let's just hope there's going to be more. And Francis himself, I didn't mention this. He didn't really know much about it, to be honest with you. And then I gave him a copy last year when they were on tour last year at one of the gigs. I gave him a copy of it, and then he called me up literally a few days later, and he said, "Fantastic, you know, really, really like it." And that was amazing because I thought that was always going to be a little bit of a sticking point, whether because Francis was never overly happy with the album anyway. I thought that could be a bit of a sticking point of the release, really. I mean, if Francis could have put his foot down and gone, "Nah, this isn't happening," but it's good to have his blessing on, with it, and he likes it, so it's fantastic.
Definitely so. That comes out on May the 16th.
Yeah, that's right. The box set, yeah,
Yeah, and that's priced at current time £75.99 on Amazon, and it fluctuates
yeah,
depending on where you buy it from.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure.
Do you know why that is?
No, it's not really anything to do with me. That I don't really set the prices or anything.
Right.
It's purely the record company. We just deliver the goods, and we did the promo video for the seed. There is another one for the record store day as well that'll be circulating at some point. So yeah, we just do the good stuff. Let the record company deal with the pricing. I don't want to get involved in that.
Which people say is a lot, but the thing is, like you say, for collectors, something
Mm.
that's never been out there before, all the work that has gone into it as well, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they obviously have to recoup that. They have to recoup our cost, a month in the studio. And it's a proper studio as well. I must reiterate, this hasn't been done in a bedroom on a home PC. This has been done in a proper studio, proper remix, Not that I'm dissing people who do that, but I'm saying this is a proper remix in a studio, which costs money, and they've got to recoup that. And you know, let's hope they do. But eight CDs, it works out. I don't think it's that expensive.
Well, no, it's less than £10 a disc.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, I, if it was up to me, I probably wouldn't have put the album on there. I would have just put the 6 CDs out. But, yeah, not my decision.
What is next for you? What's your next step?
It's really waiting for. I think as soon as this has been released, they're then going to make a decision on what the next project is. Hopefully, they'll say there is a project. Otherwise, we'll be looking for another record company. But yeah, I would say it's looking like Hammersmith 79. To be honest with you, Hammersmith 79 is very high on the list of things to do. but we just need to wait for the record company to green light it, and then we'll crack on. One of the other things as well that is trying not to flood the market with releases as well. Because I know Ear Music and Adele have obviously they've got their own thing going on with the more modern day releases. So again, it's just trying to balance it out really and make sure that we're not flooding the market with too much Quo product. Some people might love that, but you know.
Well, my wallet doesn't love that, but
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, yeah, 8 CDs is quite a hefty box set, so maybe the next one might not quite be so as big as that.
maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see on there. Well, thank you so much for coming on and kind of demystifying everything that has come out about this release, because on the surface of it, it did look like it was just the old album reissued. And, there is so much more to this. So thank you for explaining that.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. And the only other thing to point out as well, which was quite interesting, is that the old myth about it being one night was just completely false. It's certainly is a mixture of all 3 nights, the original album. So where that ever came from, I don't know.
Well, it's from an age pre-internet, isn't it? So all kinds of things can stir from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being a guest on the podcast today.
No problem at all. See you later, Jamie.